Hello and welcome back to Open. Our last guests are paving the way for women in a predominantly male industry. They are based in Brooklyn, and this group takes inspiration from a long tradition of New Orleans brass bands. And, well, they add along their own special flair when their resume includes performances for clients such as Chanel, Saks Fifth Avenue, Instagram, and the 2021 Met Gala. Here to share more about their incredible all-female horn section, we welcome two members of the Brass Queens, Alex Harris and Ali Chappelle. Hello and welcome.
Hello.
All righty now. I'm so excited to share this with our viewers. Let's talk about the Brass Queens and how many of you there are. We already mentioned that you consist of 9 pieces now, but let's talk about when you first started and how that evolved into the amount of horns that are now part of this band.
Sure. Yeah. We started in 2019. Alex and I became friends through meeting in local community bands. We were playing in a community like classical ensemble and a brass band, and we really noticed a need for all of the great women that we were performing with in both ensembles to have a different sort of experience. It's just any other performing opportunity you go to, it's always dominated by men. And so we had the idea to kind of create something that was our own, that we could really lead as we wanted to. And we really wanted to honor New Orleans brass bands. And what better way to do it than with a bunch of women? And that's not historically done. So,
Is anyone originally from New Orleans?
No, we're not. It's just interesting that we've all found a love and connection to it independently, and we came together with that.
And what instrument do you play?
I play saxophone.
You play sax, and then Alex, you play
trumpet.
Trumpet. And so, okay, just educate us a little bit about how many of each instrument this is comprised of to make the sound that you do.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really up to each individual band and like how they want to represent their sound. For us, we have 3 trumpets, 1 trombone, a tenor sax, and an alto sax, and a sousaphone and percussionists. So yeah, that's us. Some brass bands will have more trombones or less trumpets. It's sort of, whatever sound you want to embody.
All right. And so why all women?
Why not?
Yeah, why not? I mean,
true. Not that we mind, we love it.
Like that, and not that we tried to create a band that didn't exist, but we really wanted to work with the people that were around us, and they happened to be women. And I think that natural inclination of who we felt comfortable making a band with, we looked around and we were like, oh, we're all women, and so let's do it.
And then I mentioned some of the people you have performed for have been hired by, and I understand that you've only really been a group for 3.5 years now. That's really impressive. I mean, I didn't even mention that you did the Governor's Ball Music Festival as well. And so when were you guys founded, or ladies, I should say, founded? And so how has that shifted even the way you each work independently?
We started March 2019, which like the day after International Women's Day, which was just right, all the feminine energy in the universe combining.
Nice.
And I think that our presence just created something different out there, and that's why all these brands and festivals have reached out to us.
Yeah, but you can't discount our hard work. Like, we knew if we were going to do this and we were going to push through this industry that we could not stop, and we've had to work so hard. everything you just mentioned has been a goal of ours, and we've met it. It wasn't like we just waited for the call to come. Like, we knew how we wanted to be recognized, and we sought these opportunities and got them. And we did that by creating a crevice in this market for ourselves that we've been able to kind of propel ourselves through.
Yeah, and a lot of our, our male counterparts and other brass bands, they'll jokingly say that we're the hardest working brass band in New York City, but it's because we have to carve out our own path, being
Got
that
it.
we're
Yeah.
indifferent.
Yeah. And it totally makes sense. And so what the second part to my question was, like, now that you've formulated this group and you've performed you've performed for or been hired by these, really prestigious brands. I believe I even left out Saks Fifth Avenue, Tiffany and Company. I'm just going to keep dropping them because it's very impressive. So how does that impact the way you now work independently outside of the Brass Queens?
Oh, I mean, our musicians are getting called to play with other bands more and more frequently, which is, you know, the more the merrier. Like, the more that we can get, women musicians embedded into predominantly male groups, like, we're all for that. So that's something I think somewhat recently that's just started happening, and that's been really cool to see.
And the success of the band itself has become a large part of, our freelance musicians that are in the band can support themselves through the work in this band. And that's really cool. If the band didn't exist at all, if we hadn't started 3 years ago, that might not be possible for these people who've chosen to make music their full-time job.
And so, before we move on to your upcoming gigs, I want to know, like, having started this band in March of 2019, which is like right before the pandemic, how were you all able to sustain throughout the pandemic?
Yeah, the pandemic forced us to make some like tough decisions and changes in the band, which ultimately ended up, really helping us define our sound. I would say that we really blossomed during the pandemic. We spent a lot of time playing outside, safely at a distance for people, but it brought a lot of joy to the neighborhoods that we were, playing in and interacting with. Um, and that really has propelled us to where we are today. None of these like high profile, luxury brands would know who we were without, us making connections like boots on the ground
Right,
with.
right.
Yeah, you're out on the street. You have that visibility. If you just only perform in venues all the time, you're behind closed doors. It's a lot harder to be seen. Ultimately, someone's on the side of the street. You never know, especially in New York, who's going to be walking around or who you're going to run into. And also, the pandemic allowed us to go back to the roots of this tradition, this New Orleans brass tradition of being on the street. This is where the music and the inspiration comes from. So we really were able to hone that, and it's our truest strength is the sound that we've been able to hone through that time.
Right. As far as the second line, I didn't want to end on a morbid note, but I happened to experience a second line in New York in Central Park, and I know we were having some exchanges prior to getting on air, and I just wanted to share with our viewers what that is and what kind of experience that is when you're celebrating somebody's life and you're at the helm of it, right? Because you lead it. Usually the brass band usually leads the whole thing, and it's like a roller coaster of emotions based on the sound that's coming out of the horns. So just share with our viewers a little bit about that work, which I would imagine is like totally different from being on stage.
Oh, it's entirely different, and it's more pressure. It's more important because it's this very special moment in someone's life that they've invited us to come and celebrate with them. And second lines aren't always just for memorials. Like, we've done wedding second lines and other things. So there's different purposes, but it's always something very special to the person who's asked you to come be with them. And we love being able to be a part of someone's life in that way.
Yeah, and it's customizable to the person who's hiring us. They might have a different vision that might be different to something that's more traditional, but it usually always involves some sort of transformation. Like a wedding is from one phase to another phase. A typical memorial, it might start out a little more somber, and it can be so emotional that it's even hard to play after you've listened to everyone speak about this loved one. But then having the responsibility to bring people out of that and make a moment more positive and just literally lift everyone up those definitely go down in the most memorable performances we've done.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Now, before we go, I know you have a presentation coming up on December 7th. Let's talk a little bit about that at Cafe Wa.
Yeah. The Cafe Wa's in the Village. It's a historic venue. We're so honored to play there. We got to open for John the Martyr a while ago, and we're so happy to be back headlining. We're going to do a brass queen show. It's going to be all brass queens. Like if you've seen our shows before.
All sequins all the time.
All sequins. Yeah, we're going out. This is different than being on the street. Like we can bring multiple instruments. Like our tenor player is going to bring her Barry. We have like just so much packed into this great show. We're going to do some new music. We're taking a little hiatus this November just because we had such a busy summer. So we're really going to come back hard on December 7th.
Wonderful. It sounds amazing. You sold me on sequence. All right. Alex and Allie, Brass Queens, thank you for joining us today. You guys don't go anywhere because when we return, the entire group, Brass Queens, is going to perform for us after the break, and you don't want to miss.